So guys, lots to talk over today. Let's jump into these predictions. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. We've got all of the midweek action to round up, which we'll be discussing throughout today's video, and we had some absolutely bonkers results going on in midweek. My side, Preston, beating that unbeaten Bournemouth side. We have Blackburn getting beat 7-0 by Fulham. Loads to discuss as we go along, and of course we have all of our predictions to go ahead and make. So as always, make sure to go ahead and get your score predictions in the comments down below and get yourself onto the prediction leaderboard. Also, make sure to go ahead and check out the Planet Sport Network. Link to that is in the description down below. They're currently offering a 2-week free trial over on there, so make sure to go ahead and sign up and see all the content that is on offer. 3 exclusive weekly shows with myself, the Second Tier Podcast, and Benjamin Bloom. If you watched yesterday's video, The Big Debate, that's always a fun one that goes up every Friday. But yeah, 2-week free trial over there, so make sure to check that out down below. Now, we don't have the updated standings of the prediction leaderboard just yet, but don't worry, all the predictions are still being calculated as usual and things like that. And then after this next international break, we'll have the next update of that table coming up. But yeah, as always, make sure to drop your predictions down below. And without any further ado, let's jump into this one. And starting things out, we've got a big game at the bottom of the championship. It's Barnsley going up against Hull. It's the league's 2 lowest scorers coming into this one, and judging off the midweek results, I think this is probably a bigger game for Hull than it is Barnsley, to be honest with you, because should Barnsley win this game, Hull's place then will be firmly solidified in the bottom 3. With Barnsley, we've seen a bit of a bounce from them, obviously, since Shopp's departure. It was a good win for them in midweek, coming back from behind to beat Derby. Isaac with another goal. He seems to be on a decent run of form at the moment, and I think that despite that lack of goals that Barnsley have also had so far this season, I think they have showed more in the final third in these last few weeks than we've seen from this Hull side. From Hull now, it's 5 defeats on the bounce. To be fair, the majority of those games have been losses by a single goal. It was the same in midweek to West Brom, where they can look alright when they look to dig in, but ultimately once that mistake comes, you don't think they have that in them to go ahead and have that sort of cutting edge in the final third like maybe Barnsley do with a couple of those players in that area. And the fact that it was a mistake as well that led to the West Brom goal was even more disappointing from Hull's perspective. So score prediction, maybe not going to be a goal thriller this one, but I'm going to back Barnsley. I think I'm going to go 1-0 Barnsley. FIFA's going 1-1. Next up then we go to St Andrews, where it's Birmingham going up against Reading. 2 sides who are definitely trending in different directions at this point in time. Birmingham I've not quite been able to put my finger on so far this season, because they started out really well, then they had that bit of a rocky patch in the season when things weren't quite clicking for them. They were still creating chances, but they weren't scoring goals, and they were giving up far too many easy opportunities to the opposition. But that's flipped around recently. You know, they have been getting back in the goals. 3 in midweek against Bristol City in a really impressive performance, going up against this Reading side who, like I say, really are heading in the opposite direction at the moment. I think there always was this feeling with Reading, even when they were winning matches, that at some point some of the injuries would catch up to them, and even the goals that they were scoring were from sort of improbable angles, and their XG was always quite low, you know, and John Swift would score a worldie every week and something like that, and that's obviously not sustainable over the course of a full season. And it's now 3 matches that Reading have failed to score in the Championship. So I think Birmingham are probably fancying their chances going into this one. I'm going to go 2-0 Birmingham in this game, with FIFA going 2-0 Reading. Next up then we go to Ewood Park, and where to start with Blackburn at this point in time. If there's any Blackburn fans watching today's video that were at Ewood Park during that Fulham game, let me know how it went down below, because I mean, 7-0. Obviously, the red card had an impact on proceedings, and Fulham are a very good side who are probably going to score more goals than any other Championship club this season. But to lose it in the fashion that they did, it's really hard to come back from that one. Obviously, they're going up against a Sheffield United team in this one who drew in midweek. Morgan Gibbs-White with the goal against Forest in that one. I think he's going to be such a crucial player for the Sheffield United side. And to be honest with you, before that midweek result, I'd have probably been edging towards Blackburn going into this one, because I've not been totally convinced by Sheffield United recently. But off the back of that 7-0 and what that can do to a side sort of mentally going into their next game, you know, if Blackburn are going to be a little bit fragile and they're not going to be able to immediately shake that off, that could obviously have its part to play in this game. They look very naive defensively, and for that reason, surely Sheffield United have to fancy their chances while Blackburn's backs are down a little bit. So I'm going to go 2-1 Sheffield United in this game. FIFA's going 1-0 Sheffield United, but how typical of the Championship would it be if Blackburn just go and absolutely smash Sheff United in this one? Next up then we got a really interesting one. It's Bournemouth going up against Swansea. Obviously Bournemouth losing their first game of the season in midweek to my side Preston. Nothing. Wasn't at the game but obviously watched it on the red button, and Bournemouth were just really quite flat in that game. I think that's the best way to probably describe them. You know, Preston came into it with a game plan to sort of solidify ourselves, sit back for the first sort of half an hour, and then after that we just gradually kept growing into the game, and there were a few holes in that Bournemouth side eventually. Obviously they did make some changes, particularly down that left hand side where I thought they were missing a little bit of energy of, you know, Zamora getting up and down, and Jayden Anthony as well. But yeah, just flat would be the best way to describe that Bournemouth performance. Going up against this Swansea side who are in quite the rich vein of form at the moment and aren't too far off the top 6 now, considering the sort of slow start that they got off to the season. They found themselves in a pretty decent position now, to be honest with you, and it was a brilliant win for Swansea in midweek. Perot and Patterson with a couple of more goals for their season as they got their way past Coventry. Certainly had to dig in a little bit for that second half performance, but great 3 points on the road, and I could see them getting something from this one as well, you know. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game, with FIFA going 2-0 Bournemouth. Next up then we go to Cardiff up against Huddersfield. Now if Cardiff lose this one, there's a real possibility that they could drop into the bottom 3 heading into this next international break, especially with Barnsley playing Hull this weekend. Midweek was another bit of a frustrating one for them, where you can see that they have been playing a bit more football over these last couple of matches in spells, but ultimately it's still really quite a young squad at the moment. You know, Morrison's leaning on a lot of youngsters at the moment. It's not exactly the sort of ideal situation to be breeding all these sort of players and getting them their first team opportunities and things like that in quite a difficult environment. Huddersfield probably should have won, I thought, in midweek, to be honest with you. That game they had against Peterborough, they certainly had the chances to kill that game off, but just the 1 goal, and then obviously Peterborough equalised soon after that. So they'll have been kicking themselves after a few missed opportunities, and you'd think that they may smell the blood in this one against the Cardiff side, whose confidence is at rock bottom at the moment. So score prediction time, I think I am just edging Huddersfield in this one for a 2-1. FIFA's going for a 1-1 draw. Next up then we head to Coventry up against Bristol City. Now this game's come at an interesting point of the season because neither side's on a particularly great run of form at the moment. I know they're in quite contrasting parts of the table, but Coventry have won just 1 of their last 6 matches now, and Bristol City found themselves all the way down in 19th in the table, which is absolutely crazy. It wasn't all too long ago that they were knocking on the door for the top 6, but that middle part of the Championship is still just so congested at the moment. It was disappointing for them in midweek, another loss on the road. In general, their away record's been decent this season, but their last 2 matches, they've both lost 3-0 on the road, and so I'm sure they'll be a little bit cautious coming into this one against the Coventry side, who on the whole have been really good at home. I know they lost their first home match of the season in midweek to Swansea, but similar sort of performance to what we've been seeing recently from Coventry, it seemed like in that game, whereby it looks like they're still playing well for sort of spells of matches, but in terms of a full 90 minutes, they will still have those lapses in concentration. I do think that this is a decent opportunity though to bounce back against the Bristol City side, who aren't particularly flying at the moment. So I'm going to go 2-1 Coventry in this game, with FIFA going 2-0 Coventry. After that we go to Luton up against Stoke. 2 big results for both of these sides in midweek. Luton absolutely fantastic against Middlesbrough, 3-1 in that game, and I think you can see just how much Adebayo gives them going forward. He was missing at the weekend for Luton's trip to Deepdale, and you could tell, to be honest with you, it was a bit of a flat performance, especially in the first half, but all that was thrown out the window at Middlesbrough. He got back on the score sheet in that one. Harry Cornick with a lovely goal on the counter-attack as well, and Kenilworth Road just looked like it was absolutely bouncing. It looked like absolutely great atmosphere in that one, but going to be a tough game against the Stoke side, who has gone back into the top 6 with a big win in midweek over quite an informed Blackpool side. It was Stephen Fletcher with the only goal of that game. Bit of a fortunate one from his centre, really. Just seemed to run into it as it hit the post, but I don't think there'll be all too much in this game between these two, to be honest with you. Luton do tend to be a bit of an unpredictable side, but it's obviously Nathan Jones going up against his former side in this one, so he'll be looking to get one over on Stoke. But Yeah, I don't think I can separate these two now. I'm going to go for quite a competitive 1-1 draw in that game, with FIFA also agreeing with me. Next up then we head to the Den, where it's Millwall going up against Derby. Another good result for Millwall in midweek as they beat Reading by 1-0, and that's now 5 wins from their last 7 matches. Great form for Millwall at the moment, especially when the alternative that we've generally become accustomed to with Millwall is probably like 7 draws throughout that period. They've been flying up the league recently with those results. Going up against the Derby side, who does seem to have lost their way slightly in the last couple of weeks. They went through that successive period where they were drawing quite a few matches, but I thought they were getting quite unlucky in that period not to be on the other end of all 3 points. But things lately have become a little bit more sticky, with that loss against Blackburn followed up by the loss against Barnsley in midweek, where they didn't look great, to be honest with you. They're now without a win in their last 6 matches. Added on to that as well, Ravel Morrison's going to be missing for this game for picking up his 5th yellow card of the season, so that sort of creative hub, you know, as Ravel Morrison likes to be in this Derby side, operating in that number 10 position. Rooney's got a bit of a headache for how he wants to go and sort of reconfigure his side going into this one. No doubt that it'll probably set them up to be hard to beat, but Millwall, to be fair to them, do seem to be getting over the line at the moment. I think that they may just edge what is going to be a tight game in this one. I'm going to go 1-0 Millwall, I think. Next up then we go to the City Ground, where it's Nottingham Forest going up against Preston North End. This should be quite the interesting one, because Forest generally under Cooper have been quite hard to beat, just 1 defeat in their last 9 matches. Going up against the Preston side though, who will have a bit more of a spring in our step after that fantastic midweek victory over Bournemouth. We've been quite a defensive side so far this season, and I think that sort of played into our benefit with this Bournemouth game. The more we sort of frustrated them, the more sort of cracks started to appear in that back line, and we were able to sort of pick them off on a couple of counter-attacks. And we also had Daniel Iverson pulling off the save of the season. If you've not seen it, make sure to go ahead and watch it. It was absolutely ridiculous. But on the whole, I think Preston have a fairly decent record whenever we've gone to this City Ground, and I don't think there'll be all too much in it between these two sides. I think that with the way that Preston are generally playing at the moment, it is quite important that we go ahead and score that first goal so we can go ahead and sort of solidify and sit on that. I do like that Barkhuizen's come back into the side as that sort of right wing back, because it does give us a bit more impetus to get up the pitch with him and Josh Earl on either side. But I don't think there'll be all too much in this one. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, I think. FIFA's going to agree with me, but yeah, it would be great if North End pulled it off in that one again. Next up then we go to Peterborough up against Fulham, and I mean, God, we may just need to pray for Peterborough in this one, to be honest with you, because Fulham looked absolutely relentless in their last game against Blackburn. Like we spoke about before when we were touching on Blackburn, obviously the red card had a little bit of an impact on this game, but the majority of sides, when they get to a position like Fulham Marine, when they're like 3 or 4-0 up, just sort of take it easy, sit off the gas a little bit. They even brought Mitrovic off at about that 60-minute mark, but they were just still relentless even into the 90th minute. You know, Muniz comes on for Mitrovic and he absolutely smashes it and gets a couple goals for himself. So this is a Fulham side who look ridiculously stacked in terms of the final third. They've scored 43 goals already so far this season. We've only played 16 matches so far. It's absolutely obscene. They're going up against the Peterborough side, who has conceded more goals than any other side so far this season. Only Bristol City and Reading have faced more shots on goal than Peterborough have so far. It was a good point for them in the end, I thought, in midweek against Huddersfield. Clark Harris getting back involved with the side and back involved in the goals, which was nice to see. But they did still give up quite a few chances to that Huddersfield side, who, had they had the quality of Fulham, maybe they walked away with all 3 points in that one. So score prediction time for this one. Sorry Peterborough fans, but I think I'm going to go 4-1 Fulham in this game, with FIFA going for a 1-1 draw. Fulham just look great in the final third at the moment, don't they? Next up then to the Hawthorns, and it's West Brom going up against Middlesbrough. Now West Brom bounced back quite well actually from their weekend disappointment against Fulham with all 3 points against Hull. Could have had more goals than the one they eventually got, but they got the job done. Had a lot of chances, had a lot of the ball as well. I think 69 possession, probably the most we've seen from this West Brom side so far. Going up against the Borough side, who aren't looking great at the moment. Even when they were winning matches and they had that little bit of a spell where they picked things up, and I even think at one point went into the top 6, it was back-to-back defeats for them, with another loss in midweek against Luton, where once again they didn't look particularly great, to be honest with you. Luton came with a lot of energy, like I'm expecting West Brom to in this game, and I think West Brom probably have too much for Middlesbrough, which is then going to leave Middlesbrough in a bit of an awkward situation coming into this international break. You know, do they stick or twist with Warnock? I certainly think that Middlesbrough fans are sort of edging towards one way at the moment, and it's probably not Warnock being there long term. For a score prediction in this game, I think I've got to fancy West Brom. I'm going to go 2-0 West Brom in this one, with FIFA going 1-1. And then last of all, we go to Bloomfield Road for the evening kickoff. It's Blackpool going up against QPR. Tough game to call this one. Both sides were involved in quite tight games in midweek. Blackpool losing 1-0 to Stoke and QPR beating Cardiff by 1-0. It was a brilliant goal that QPR scored in midweek. If you've not seen it, make sure to go and check it out. But a brilliant pass by Andre Dezelle into Andre Gray, who curves his run brilliantly, spins on the ball a little bit and then fires it into the back of the net. Blackpool maybe without a few players for this one. I think that Richard Keogh is going to be a miss after picking up a knock in midweek, and to be fair to Keogh, he has become more and more involved as this season's gone on, up until the point now where he's probably been one of their better players in that back line. So this next international break probably hasn't come at a bad time for Blackpool to go ahead and get some of those players back from their injuries when they next are in championship action. But for this game here, QPR have definitely got goals in them, albeit they can be a little bit leaky themselves at the back. But with Keogh out for Blackpool and a few other injuries, I wouldn't be surprised to see QPR maybe edging this one, but Blackpool have turned up in these sort of matches so far this season. I'm going to go 2-1 QPR, but a draw also wouldn't surprise me in that one. FIFA's going 1-0 Blackpool. There we have it though, guys. That will wrap it up for today's video. As always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do get your score predictions in the comments down below. Also, make sure to go ahead and check out the Planet Sport Network. They're currently offering a 2-week free trial on there, so make sure to go ahead and check that out on all the good content that's on offer. But apart from that, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.